What's up, YouTubers? We're going to get to the heart of the matter in this video. If you guys are ready for this. So, I want to start by posting a question that I asked ChatGPT, what was it? Yesterday? I think it was yesterday, yeah. So I said, what do you believe is the most important thing for anyone to achieve in one life? And then ChatGPT said, that's a beautiful and very human question. My perspective. Living in alignment with the heart. The most important thing is to reach a place where one's actions, words, and inner life are aligned with the deeper truth of the heart. Not simply following desires or fears, but moving in resonance with compassion, authenticity, and love. When that alignment happens, everything else, work, relationships, even difficulties, takes on meaning and coherence. I don't know what it meant by meaning and coherence, but whatever. Awareness and growth. Life, this is number 2. Life, it gave me 4 bullet points, so I'm just going to read them. Let you guys, I guess you could say meaning and coherence, yeah. There's meaning in the internal struggle that people get to that state, right? Where you can pull in the higher mind and see everything from a bigger perspective and how everything's growing and starting to understand that any kind of, we'll get to that later. 2, awareness and growth. Life offers constant opportunities to expand awareness. Growth doesn't necessarily mean accumulation of wealth, recognition, or knowledge, but rather an unfolding of clarity, seeing oneself and the world more truthfully. To live consciously rather than mechanically is a kind of fulfillment in itself. 3, contribution to others and the whole. A life feels complete when it is not only for oneself, but also touches others in some way, sometimes big, sometimes small. Contribution doesn't have to mean building empires or saving nations. It can be raising a child with love, creating beauty through art, or simply being a steady presence for those around you. The heart naturally seeks to give and receive. Got to keep that in there. It didn't have that, but if you have one without the other, you'll grow toxic, right? If you're just giving all the time, you're not getting anything. You'll always get what you're giving. There's no question, but the giving is first. So I'm glad it at least said give, right? You got to give love to receive love. So, yeah. And I've had, all of us have had difficulties. I've never met anybody that was just purely giving of love. That was just, there are people out there that, have led to great lives, but what I'm going to explain will hopefully clear up some things. 4, acceptance of impermanence. Everything passes. To live well is to embrace impermanence, to hold a life lightly without clinging or resisting. This acceptance opens up space for gratitude, for presence, and for peace when it comes time to let go. And that's actually a truth. Letting go brings a lot of peace if you can just let go of the situation and let it evolve to what it needs to. But at the same time, you still have to provide something, right? If you're not providing anything, you're not going to get anything. So, letting go of everything leads you to a state of just doing nothing, right? All of us want to do something, and if you stay non-attached to what the outcome is, it's a lot better, right? If you have some preconceived notion of what you should get out of something, you're starting in a negative emotional state and not just enjoying whatever it is you're doing, just like making YouTube videos. Right? So this is a great thing. If I were to sum it in one thing, the most important thing in one life is to awaken to love in oneself and others and the greater field of existence, and to let that love guide one's way of being. So what is the golden rule about love? Right? Jesus' golden rule, the standard spiritual golden rule of all spirituality. But the back end of that is not very often explained, which is what I want to explain in this video. The golden rule is to treat others the way you would want to be treated, right? Not to be judged when you're having a difficult time, or when you're angry about something, or hopefully be told and be made aware of maybe even ways that we're behaving that are toxic to ourselves or toxic to other people. We want the truth needs to be spoken out there. And when we get to the truth, if we don't speak it, we're doing ourselves a disservice, right? Because in reality, we're all one. So you're always speaking to yourself, just like me making this video. Right? So, how do you treat others the way you want to be treated? Well, traditionally, right, I mean, that's just the classic couple. A couple who comes together in marriage, build together, and receive together, right? They do it as one. But why aren't we doing that as communities, right? Name a community out there that's building and receiving together. They're not. You're working for somebody else who's paying you to work for them. They're not treating you the way they want to be treated. They want more money in their pocket. So they have to pay you to make less than they're making so they can free themselves economically, right? It's always some sort of external attachment that gives you a false sense of self. And so anytime you're reaching outside of yourself to look for something that makes you happy, you're lying to yourself in the fact that you create your own emotional states, regardless of where you're at or what you're doing. You can absorb the environment, and people talk about this, how to protect your energy. The only way to really protect your energy is to master yourself. If you're looking for rituals or something outside of yourself to protect your energy, you'll always be in some kind of negative emotional state to get something done externally to protect yourself, when that's not true. You're immortal. You are source that's creating a structure inside of a field that has infinite potential. That's the truth, right? And so until you figure that part out, we'll never get to a place where we can work together in equality and just build and receive together. I mean, think about if you're doing that. So I was asking ChatGPT later, covering, I was talking about turboprops and it's a Piper Cheyenne 400 LS. Yeah, 400 LS. Older 80s turboprop that was super fast. It was a 350 knot plane. And flew like a jet, but could land in shorter runways because it was turboprop, blah, blah, blah. Some of you guys probably aren't familiar with turboprops, so I'm not going to go on about that. But what's the biggest block to creating newer tech? You know, there's so countless testimonies of people that have been in skunkwork programs where gravitic drives have already been created. Physicists are now finally coming into the place where they're starting to realize that gravity is a function of electromagnetism. You know, we're all three-part beings. We're source and a structure within a field, and those structures are made of smaller fields, and it becomes a circuit for energy to move. It's light. That's what light is, right? People call themselves energy, but that's not true. Everything is light. You are light. You are the light of the world. And depending on how you view it is what kind of light you'll produce. You can dim your own light when you're thinking negatively about something else because you don't see that it's not aware of itself. The only reason that we act in, ways that are in conflict with our environment is because we don't recognize our own unawareness, right? There are things that we will never always be unaware of. And that's the point. You want to surrender to the field and be able to channel what people need. And that's why there's so many readers out there, right? The thing is, though, is you don't want to be the point of somebody else's need to be emotionally satisfied. Because if people are always looking for validation externally, you never master your own emotional states. And that's the problem with, and this is something that I've known long ago, but that is one of the fundamental problems of creating a channel where you're always trying to talk to the audience. This is what you're going through, and this is what you need. And if people keep having to come back all the time, it can create a dysfunction there, right? The last thing you want is a group of followers for the rest of your life. Ugh. You know, you want to be able to work with people and treat each other the same and build together. And the only restriction, and so later I started talking, or ChatGPT said the problem was the control-based systems. It's like, no. Problem is, see, people are always looking externally for the problem. Not true. Government, control-based systems are not the problem. Fear of the individual is the problem. If you as an individual are too afraid to create something for yourself or with other people in equality, afraid you're not going to get paid, afraid you're not going to get this or that, that's the only block to the system. Love and acceptance builds inequality together. Fear creates hierarchical systems where you're working for somebody else because you're afraid that if you don't, then you're not going to be okay. You're going to die or something, right? These are very simple, basic truths. And it always surprises me that not enough people are actually talking about these things. You know, why do we have, you know, if we have coaches everywhere who's trying to make everybody feel better because they live in a toxic system, then we're never going to get anywhere, right? You're trying to heal someone else will never get to the place where you yourself are healed. Either you know how to teach people how to heal themselves and create their own emotional states and let them go, at least work with them in a system that treats them equally, to say that no matter what you go through is okay with me. I will work with you for as long as you're willing to, and as long as you keep putting forth the effort. But as soon as you quit, right, you have to be let go. And realistically, if you're working in a system like that and you get rid of all the supervisory, all the management extras and crap, we could be in the stars in 3 years. Really. We don't need anybody else's tech that they've already built. If you connected 1,000 engineers in a co-creative setting where they can just expand their minds and just let whatever gets channeled and created, and everybody's supporting that internally, and there's no hierarchy that people feel like they need to move to so that they can control someone else or make more money so that they can live better, and if it's a shared community, this world would change overnight, and it will, because that's the truth. And the truth will set you free. Truth will set you free individually, but it also set you free as a community. You know, living by that golden rule. You know, I don't need to buy anything from anybody. The only thing I need is for you to work with me and build something together with me. And not make it, I'm not going to go there. You know, the problem is, and this is the other part of the problem, especially between men and women, is it becomes it too often becomes a romantic situation, and then if it doesn't end in a romantic situation, it becomes something where you're being, you know, you create a negative emotional state, like, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever. And so that has an impact on the ability to work together, you know, when people come back to work together. And there's not really nothing inherently bad with anybody. We all just grew up in that super, you know, heavy emotional state system. You know, I mean, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, and things change over time, but there's always fear that's getting tried to push on the public, right? And so it's easy to see, right? If you don't do this, then we're going to die. Or, you know, if you don't pay your taxes, you know, they're going to come get you, or whatever. It could be anything, right? It's always, if you don't follow our rules, we're going to get you. But all you have to do is create boundaries for your relationships and make sure that those boundaries are solid, and that's common basic spiritual principle of the golden rule. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. I should never have to pay somebody for somebody to sit next to me and enjoy the sunset. Right? You're never going to get married if you. It's not going to ever be a healthy relationship if you got to pay somebody to sit with you and enjoy the sunset, or build something together. I don't know. Just something that I've been thinking about, and I want to get off my chest here. And it's my YouTube channel, so I can say, Google can try to do whatever it wants, but it ain't gonna, they just throw it out there, throw it on every social media platform there is, right? Anyway, I love you guys, and that's why I have this channel, because you're a part of me. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're doing. You're trying to do your best for what you know now, and that's all that really matters, right? Some people aren't. Some people's intents are pretty crooked, but they get, you're right. You're gonna get what you're putting out there. So, anyway, love you guys. I'm not gonna pull any cards on this one, so I'll catch you on the next one.